Should I just start?
Yeah.
Please.
Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Warren here. Hello.
Hello. We are absolutely delighted to welcome, I hope I can say, our new friend Warren Haynes to the studio. Sorry, we're a bit giddy because the noise that Warren's making here is just
Flipping.
Noise is the proper term, though. Yeah, it's rock and roll. It's that rock and roll noise.
Yeah, man.
it's great. We should explain. Warren's been touring with your own band
Yes.
in Spain and was good enough to stop here on the way back through to the US to come and see us, which is why he doesn't have any of his own guitars, so he's playing ours, playing Dan's. And we're honoured, man. Thank you for joining us.
Loving this guitar, though. It's a beautiful instrument.
That'll do. It's going up on Reverb next week.
As played
As
by
played by
Warren
Warren Haynes.
Haynes.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. This is Ace. Having heard you over the past many decades and stuff, to actually be sat in the room with you making some glorious noise. It's so cool. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We thought what we'd do today, if you, instead of going really deep into all the historical stuff, you did an amazing interview with Rick Beato. And if you want to see that stuff, go and check out Rick's thing.
And watch it anyway. It's a fantastic
amazing.
interview.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Loads of insight into the way Warren thinks about stuff. We might just drill into some of that today and get into some tone stuff.
Yeah.
Because aside from all the fantastic music you've made, you are known for tone, right? That's...
Well, for me, it's hard to play if your tone isn't right, because I rely so much on improvisation. And it's hard to improvise if you're not happy with what you're getting from the amp or from the rig. I think I told Rick during that interview that, if your tone's not right, you can play stuff that will work.
Yep. Yep.
But it's not inspired.
Sure.
And so to really be inspired, you have to love what you're hearing back. And that's one of the most beautiful things about playing guitar, is being inspired by the tone that you're hearing. And sometimes plugging a different guitar into a different amp, you get some sound that you've never had before, and that's inspiring. And even today, as we're just messing around hearing all these great toys that you guys have, it's picking up one and going, oh, this sounds fantastic. And a new sound will inspire you to play differently. But also, depending on your tried and true sound that you worked hard to develop, that's obviously a good home base to have.
Yeah. It's really interesting. We're all having a play before, but you pick up the guitar and it's Warren Haynes. It sort of didn't matter what amps were going on, what pedals we had. It's like you almost have a built-in overdrive in your right hand. Your attack hits the amp in a really specific way.
I think the right hand has a lot to do with a player's style. The attack is so important, and dynamics, like what I played in the slide intro in the beginning. The amp's responding when I hit it hard. It's also responding when I hit it soft. And that's very important. Like, if you go to hit something soft and it doesn't quite translate, or vice versa, if you hit something hard and it just kind of dimes out, then but finding a sound where the dynamics are there. I'm looking for like a vocal range type of sound where you, as a singer, you can sing really quiet, you can sing really loud, and anywhere in between, but they should all sound like your voice.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a bunch of things I want to get into, but a really important question that I wanted to ask. When people ask us, you know, what's one of the things that I should really learn about playing guitar? We always say learn to sing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your vocals are, you know, awesome. How important has being a singer to actually finding your voice on guitar?
Well, I think because I really kind of started singing before I started playing guitar.
Right.
So all the music that I was listening to at that time, I was zeroing in on the singer. And that changed somewhere around age 11 or 12. I started zeroing in on the guitar players also. Right. Like as a kid, I loved B.B. King because I loved his voice. Yeah. And it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, that's also him playing guitar, and it's fantastic. So when I was first getting passionate about music, I was listening to soul music. Sam and Dave, the Four Tops, the Temptations, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin. And so really just studying as a kid, you don't know you're studying, but you're studying the singers.
Yeah.
And then my oldest brother brought home Sly and the Family Stone, and that kind of planted a seed, and a light bulb came on above my head. And then not long after that, he brought Jimi Hendrix and Cream and Johnny Winter. So I was really becoming a guitar fan at that point, you know. And when I was 11, my brother had an acoustic guitar, and I played it more than he did. And so when I was 12, my dad bought me an electric guitar, and that was kind of the beginning of the shift from only listening to singers to listening to both singers and guitar players. But at that time, the guitar was like just freaking me out. It was such a heavy thing. But I realized that all my favorite players were either singers also, or they sounded like they were singing through their instrument.
Yep.
And so I gravitated toward that at a young age, you know. And so, you know, I love Jeff Beck. I eventually would hear the Allman Brothers with Duane Allman and Dickie Betts. And I was young when I was hearing that music, but it wasn't until probably Live at Fillmore East when I was old enough to really start understanding it, you know. But I was fortunate enough to have these two older brothers that had great taste in music and had tons of records. So I was exposed to a lot of great music at a really young age. And I think that helped. It helps anybody, but especially for a musician to have as many influences as possible. Because if you expose yourself to tons of music, it's all going to seep in somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And so even, you know, I listened to a lot of jazz at an early age. And I never studied jazz, never played jazz, but it's a part of my overall kind of musicality just because I've listened to it and love it so much. Yeah. And I think with anyone to like let all the influences kind of work their way into your vocabulary helps you find your voice, which is where we started looking for your voice. Yeah. The more you listen to, the more possible it is to be yourself, I think, because if you only listen to three things, then that's what you sound like.
Because you're an amalgam of your influences.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So if you've got 100 influences, then
So the more you stretch that across a wide variety, the more you can kind of find something unique, I think, you know.
It's interesting you referenced the soul music early on, because if you listen to Gov't Mule, for example, what you will hear is groove, 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 groove,
Absolutely.
groove. Yep. And that seems to underline a lot of the way you approach music. It is tremendously groove orientated and focused, and kind of, I don't know, I want to say back. Like, I don't know about out and out swing, but the groove is intense always.
Well, when we started Gov't Mule, part of the mission was for all the tempos to be way on the backside and the grooves to be really fat and because we love so much music that was like that, and it's darker and heavier when you do that. You know, a lot of times you discover that when you're listening to music, or when you're playing music, if you slow the tempo down, oh, what just happened? It just became this heavier thing, you know. And I remember like bands like Little Feat, who I really loved. The live stuff was even slower than the studio stuff, which is the opposite of most live stuff, right?
Discipline to do that.
Yeah, and not easy to do, but it's when you hear it back, it's really rewarding. I just always love that stuff. But yeah, we were a little overboard with that in the beginning. I think our early stuff was. When I listened to the tempos on some of the early records, I'm like, wow, we were really pushing it back, you know. But I love it, you know.
Let's get into some tones then. So Dan and I, mostly Dan to be fair, have attempted to put together a rig that somewhat mimics the kind of sounds that Warren is used to in his live rig. Massive thanks to John Bollinger and Premier Guitar,
yes,
for the research, and for Jim for sending us some stuff. So we've got some greatest hits that you can see on the board. What we'd like to get into first, Warren, is that thing you were talking about as we opened up, about getting that point where the amp, the bass tone, enables you to hit the guitar hard and it overdrive a little bit and right back. When you played that bit in the beginning, I had to kind of double take that you hadn't knocked the guitar volume off.
Yeah.
Because it went like super clean and we'd been lovely and overdriven. Could you explain a little bit about how you begin with that? Like, you've got a guitar, you've got an amp, where is home?
I like for my basic rhythm sound to be treble pickup on about 7 or something with the guitar. If it's a rock song, I might be up a little higher. If it's a softer song, I might be down a little lower. But I like to have a sound that translates, that when you back the volume off, it still is a good sound. And
just cleans up.
Yeah, and if it's not the right sound, then the top end will go away too much to be a cool rhythm sound. You know, now, having said that, a lot of players that I love go for a completely different rhythm and lead tone and different amps and different effects and everything. But I think it mostly started when I joined the Allman Brothers in 1989. I wanted all the sounds that I was getting to come from the amp. And if I didn't have any effects, which in the Allman Brothers, I didn't use effects at all. I just plugged straight in because that's what they did, and it was kind of part of the territory. But I love that.
I've got to ask.
Yes.
I've got to ask. You're growing up listening to the Allman Brothers. What was the first gig like when you're on stage?
It was amazing.
The Allman Brothers.
Well, and the first rehearsal was amazing. You know, I had been in Dickie Betts's band, and he invited myself and Johnny Neal, the keyboard player, to when they reformed the Allman Brothers, but they didn't have a bass player. So we were part of the audition process to audition bass players, and we auditioned about a dozen bass players and a lot of great people. But Alan Woody won the audition. He and I had met before that, but we didn't really know each other well. We had jammed together one time when he was playing with Artemis Pyle, the drummer from Lynyrd Skynyrd. And they were doing a club gig in Nashville when I was there, and they invited me to join them in the encore. But it was like a shuffle or something. You know, we barely knew each other. But when he joined the Allman Brothers, we became instant friends. So then we did 3 weeks of rehearsal with the Allman Brothers. And the very first rehearsal was scary because the band had not played together in 9 years. It was a brand new chemistry, a brand new unit, but it worked, and everybody knew it. That the new
straight from
the very beginning, the new members and the old members, it just all clicked. And right from the start, it was great, but you could feel it every day getting a little bit better. But we never did kick into that extra gear until the show.
Right, okay.
And of course, all the improv and the Allman Brothers, that night on stage, the very first night, like a lot of those songs I grew up playing. I played them in garage bands or bar bands or stuff, but not like that. Like it was just another level. The way that band played together and the way they pushed each other,
just magic.
It was total magic.
Yeah.
And to be part of it. And of course, if I heard it back now, I would think, it's compared to where we got, it's nowhere close. But for a first night, it was pretty unbelievable. And hair on my arms is standing up, and I'm standing up there with these people that they were one of my all-time favorite bands.
Yeah.
And I would never ever think, I'm going to grow up and be in that band. And standing on stage, I was used to standing next to Dickie, which was intimidating, but then standing next to Greg and hearing him sing and play organ, and the two drummers were so fantastic, and it was a mind-blowing experience and a life-changing experience, and it opened so many doors for me.
Yeah, of course.
Like musicians around the world respected the Allman Brothers, so I inherited that respect, and it was unbelievable.
We were saying at dinner last night, it was supposed to be a tour and a record, was it? And ended up 25 years or so?
Yeah, well, initially they had put out a box set called Dreams that was a retrospective for their 20th anniversary. And they were going to do an anniversary tour, and none of us thought that it would go beyond that. Then it turned into, well, we should make a new record. So in 1990, we went and made the record Seven Turns.
Which is killer.
It's a great record, and the songs are good. The band played great. But then when they decided, well, let's do another record, which the second record was Shades of Two Worlds, I think you can see the development of the band. You could see that we'd been together for 2 or 3 years at that point. But it was a surprise to all of us that we continued to play because, like we were talking about at dinner last night, they had a history of 3 years and breaking up. They could never make it past 3 years. So the fact that they managed to keep it going from '89 forward was amazing.
You sang on that first record as well.
I sang a song called "Loaded Dice," which I wrote with Dickie Betts, and I sang. It was so amazing that not only were they letting the new members be an equal part of the music, but they brought me in as a songwriter, as a guitar player, slide guitar player, but as a singer as well. And, I didn't expect that. I was really happy from a songwriter's perspective because I'd been writing with Dickie, and Greg had just recorded my song Just Before the Bullets Fly for his last solo record at that time. So I knew that coming in as a songwriter made sense, but the fact that they're like, well, why don't you sing a song? I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously that I wanted to do that, but I didn't expect, standing next to Greg Allman, who was one of my all-time favorite singers.
And give it a spin, right? So give that record a spin, and listen. It's not like, oh, here's Greg Allman and here's the other guy singing. Yeah. It's like, holy shit, who's this other guy singing?
Well, which was intimidating, obviously. Yeah. And Dickie was a great vocalist as well. I think Dickie shied away from singing too much because Greg was such a great singer. But and occasionally we would sing 3-part harmony. It would be fantastic because those guys grew up singing that way.
And it's seeing it live, just watching live footage back, and just how great the harmonies are, and just how together. Yeah, amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to get into the whole thing, but
we couldn't not talk about
exactly.
As well.
Sorry.
Right, let's get back to guitar then. So where we was talking about that, where you begin, guitar amp, getting the place where you're happy in terms of the gain level. And the reason I asked that, you've talked quite a bit about your Soldano, that people are surprised you would use a Soldano because it's noted as a high gain amp, but actually you run it with the lower gain.
Yes.
We are actually in the 2-rock. Sorry, we'll start there. This is a 2-rock.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
Well, this actually sounds the most like the Soldano, I think, from what we did. When I hit it hard, it's crunchy, but when I hit it soft, not so much. That's how I can tell the tone is adaptable, you know.
We have the Klon on there as well, which is giving it that punch.
The Klon is great. I used one of the earliest Klons. When I first got the Klon, I was using it just to make the same sound louder because he worked so hard to make that possible. Yeah. And I remember when Stevie Ray Vaughan used to do that, I think with a tube screamer, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty close. But when he developed the Klon, he was so proud of the fact that you could get the tone exactly the same but louder. And I was looking for that because if you reach that point where the band is in ultra overdrive, and you want that same sound, but you want it to get on top of the band. That's the way I use my Klon first, and I was like, no, I'm wasting it. It's such a beautiful pedal. I got to let it do what it can do.
And would you have yours set kind of like this with the gain? Yeah. Okay.
I think that's pretty much how mine is set. And you know, I like to use a lot of sounds that are just the amp.
Yeah.
And when I use the Klon, it's if I want a little bit creamier, a little bit dirtier. But sometimes what I'll do is turn the guitar back, kick the Klon in, and so it's similar but different.
Let's hear a bit of that.
Yeah. So if with this is with the guitar backed off a little bit. So if I had the guitar all the way up, it would sound like. But backing it down. So it still has that creaminess and that crunch, but without all the extra gain, which, you know, for me, it's a fine line, how far to go, because I know a lot of my favorite guitar players would say, it's easier to play with more distortion, but when you listen back, it's not as cool.
Yeah.
And so to find that comfort zone where you can play your best, but you're still happy with the sound, you know.
And that low mid-range bark of the Lester is just unmistakable, isn't it? Man, it's such a cool sound.
Yeah, because the low notes are. They're not too woofy, and then, you know, and again, if the sound wasn't right, then I would back away from playing down there. You know,
right? Okay.
When you play down on the bottom end and your sound is kind of crapping out, you go, okay, well, I guess I got to go back up top.
You're friends with Paul Reed Smith, aren't you?
Yes, long time.
He calls that chirpy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Those bottom notes.
Yeah.
Where you're just digging in with the pick. He calls it chirping. I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
Paul's quite a good player.
Yeah.
He came in here and he had it going on.
He really did.
Let's contrast that then. So what you just heard was the Klon into the 2-rock. Let's have a listen to the Marshall. What we've done with the Marshall, you'll hear it first, just straight Marshall, but we've added the Page tube boost if Warren wants it, just for a bit of extra gain.
So we don't have to turn it up so loud. Because those Marshalls sound best when you can't stand next to them, you know.
And this one's running into a 212 greenback cab, so the speakers just basically can't take any more than this. You'll already hear them crapping out a bit, which is a wonderful thing in itself. So here's without the Page.
So super clean. That's, you know, not what people expect to hear from a Marshall,
Yeah, right.
but they do it really well. But the page is really helping it be more where I would start my sound, you know. That's a cool, throaty sort of Marshall sound.
Yeah,
you know?
speakers going,
And gain-wise, is that about where you like it? Less, more?
Yeah, sometimes I'll go a little more. Sometimes I'll go a little more so I can back the guitar down a little bit more. It really just kind of depends on the room.
Yeah.
You know, and a friendly room will help you kind of find your muse, you know. If a room's too dry, it's, you know, even your own gear sounds funny.
yeah,
you know?
sure.
Is there a specific thing you're looking for? So you walk into a room, it's sound check time. Is there a specific thing you listen out for, or is it just a general feel?
Well, I like the room to be kind of reverby,
Yeah.
but not enough to keep the bass from translating.
Okay.
Because as a singer, I like hearing the room when I'm singing, and as a guitar player, I like hearing that kind of natural reverb. But if they're too boomy, then the entire band sounds bad. So it's that fine line again between the right forgiveness point, you know. But to me, I'm old school. Like I can't get next to in-ears. I've tried it, but I like hearing the sound of the room.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's isolating, isn't it? Just to be.
Yeah.
It is, you know, and I love making records. I love being in the studio, but it's not nearly as free as performing on stage. And so for that reason, being or not being confined to that is just liberating for me. But, you know, everybody's different.
Okay, so we've heard the Klon and the 2-Rock. We've heard the Page and a sort of bass Marshall-y kind of sound. One of the things you use on your board is the Cesar Diaz
Texas Ranger.
Texas Ranger, okay.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a treble booster kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I think Caesar told me that he got the idea from the top boost AC30. But the Texas Ranger has the option of boosting low, mid, or high, and I like the low. And this thing you guys have has that same feature. It's very similar.
Yeah, this is
really cool.
This is the closest thing we have to that. Hello, Chris, if you're watching.
Nice pedal.
So perhaps you could, first question, is this doing a similar thing to the Diaz?
Yes,
for you?
very similar.
Oh, cool.
I thought it was very similar.
And what sort of situation would you kick this?
What I've been using it for, because it's so versatile, you can boost the top and get some really great sounds that way, and the same with the mid. But when you boost the low, it has that Hendrixy kind of sound that he would get when, I don't know exactly how he achieved that, but probably by rolling the tone pot down and going up to the bass pickup and having the amp just super loud. But
That'll do it.
but the low boost on these pedals kind of gives you a similar effect to that. So you instantly get this sustain where you can hold a note as long as you want and that sort of thing, you know.
Let's have a little listen to see if we can get into some of that territory.
That was bass pickup. Even on the treble pickup, it has a... It's not a Strat, it's not a fuzz face or whatever, but it has that same sort of voice,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
But I like it when it's middle or bass pickup. It's pretty rebellious.
I love we can just hear the cab giving up.
Yeah,
the cab's going,
it's surrendering.
Enough.
Yeah,
and you get.
But that's part of rock and roll. You know, the great guitar sounds are on the verge of something blowing up. You know, always have been.
We really should talk about the Rotosphere. So
we were looking for an excuse to get one for ages. That's like, oh, Warren's coming in, quick!
Hooray!
Hooray!
Reverb.com. Buy. I would say, of anybody, this pedal is synonymous with you. Because
I've used one for a really long time. Yeah. When we first started Gov't Mule, I was using a Roland G4, and I liked the stereo quality of it. I could run 2 matching soldanos, and when we were in the studio, it would be stereo when the pedal was engaged, and it would default to mono when I turned it off, and it was a really cool sound. The whole first Gov't Mule record was made that way. But then I discovered the Rotosphere, and it sounds more like a real Leslie. So you can keep your tone, but just have a Leslie effect applied to it, which is great for me because I had tried Leslie's live, and when you switch to them, your whole world changes. You know, it's never the same volume, it's never the same tone. And so the sound guy's going crazy. So now I can be in the middle of a phrase and turn the Rotosphere on, and that Leslie effect comes on, but it doesn't jar you as a listener or as a player. You know.
And you would run that into either of your amps?
Yeah, I use it. These days, it's usually a Homestead and a Soldano for Gov't Mule. Sometimes a Marshall instead of the Soldano. And I have still my old Cesar Diaz amps that I use from time to time as well. And my new band, which is a completely different type of thing, I'm not using the Soldano. I have been using the Homestead, and I've been experimenting with these new Paul Reed Smith amps that we talked about that are really cool. And also a Magnetone I've been kind of experimenting with. But with any amp, you can, or the way I said it, you can turn on the Rotosphere at any time and it doesn't disrupt your world. It just kind of adds a new color, you know. So I literally will be in the middle of a solo and just step on it at random. Sometimes for the slow speed, sometimes for the fast speed, you know, and it works great. It's a really cool pedal.
Okay, we'll have a listen to it. I was listening to the first Gov't Mule record yesterday, and there's a solo you play it on, and it sounds like you're going almost from off to slow to fast in different sections of the solo. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of the track. So,
maybe it'll come to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So that's something you would do. You'd go between the speeds as well. Yeah, cool, man. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Marshall. As we were.
Let's do two rock.
Two rock. Okay. Here we go.
First question I have, Warren. Are the speeds similar to yours?
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, because obviously they're set. You can't change them.
Yeah, that's the sound I'm used to hearing.
And the bass, the tone of it, because you can go more bassy.
And Dan was perfect in changing where it should go fast.
Do you ever use the break setting?
Sometimes, and not as much. Mostly because I forget, because it's a really cool setting.
Yeah. And use it with gain too? With overdrive as well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we can demonstrate actually a dirtier sound in a solo kind of single note sort of thing. You know, if it gets too dirty, then avoid chords.
Yeah.
But still, single note is cool. You know.
So try with the Klon.
Sure.
Okay.
There endeth the lesson, children.
There it is.
That's a cool sound. I love that. I love that sound, and I love the fact that I can just hit it at random.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of effects, if you're in the middle of a solo, sometimes it changes the sonic picture to the extent that it kind of disrupts the flow.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I can just engage that anytime.
Before we move on then, we want to see if you would like, so you're used to hearing it flat out into one amp. Dan's done some jimmying on G3 here so that we can have both amps on and it just hitting one amp. I'm kind of interested in your response to this.
Yeah.
Because well, let's see what you think.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So this will be both amps, so we'll be a bit louder, but...
Cool sound. Yeah, I like that. It was fun playing to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's different than what we had before. So what I like is when a sound inspires you to hold on to a note that you wouldn't normally hold on to. Right. You know, like I tell people that if your sound is bad, then you don't want to hold a note.
Yeah.
You know, but if it sounds good, you want to hold it for a while, and that's part of the inspiration from having a sound that you're enjoying, and it also makes you play with more punctuation. You know, if your sound is not right, then you play too many notes. And if your sound is great, you play the proper amount.
Yeah, you heard it there as the feedback was coming in. Warren's like, yeah, I'm digging that. I'm not digging that. Volume down on the guitar a bit. Just let it sit.
Yeah, just responding to what you're hearing. I didn't expect it to be quite so ferocious in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I guess with 2 amps, so everything gets twice as loud.
Well, you know, I use the 2 amps on stage, but they're never on at the same time.
Yeah, right.
In the studio, when I don't have to stand next to it, I'll have them sometimes on at the same time. You know.
Yeah, I mean that was like being lifted.
It was.
It was like being lifted.
My ears tingling.
Yeah. That pedal is too loud for Warren Haynes. No, not true. What about echo and delay, Warren?
I normally have a slapback and a long delay. The long delay is very few repeats, and I think it's around 400 and something milliseconds. So the one we were messing with sounded right for both the slap and the long delay. I never use them at the same time, although I know some people do, and it's fun to experiment with. I like sometimes to add the delay in the middle of a solo, like we were talking about with the Leslie effect with the Rotosphere. Sometimes I feel like I'll start a solo dry, and then if it's a long solo, you know, maybe 30 seconds in or something, I'll turn the delay on, maybe turn it back off, maybe just to accentuate certain things that I play, because it'll make me play differently when I hear the delay on. But it's, you know, it's always interesting to kind of play with a longer delay, because it influences the note selection, you know. But it's an important part of my overall rig, I think. I love to have a dry sound and then incorporate something to change that up as the song progresses and stuff. You know.
Let's have a listen then. We've got a tube tape echo on the floor to do the longer delay.
Yeah, those are great.
Maybe you could let us know if it's the right length, if it needs more repeats, if it needs less repeats.
Okay, so 2 rock, Marshall?
2 rock. So I normally check it like this. And that sounds right. And I think that's the right decay and amount of repeats as well. Sometimes I'll have a little bit more, but I don't like a lot of repeats. I find that it limits what you can play, you know. Nice, yeah, that's cool. And again, when I played soft, the amp responded. Yeah. And when I played hard, the amp responded the way it's supposed to. And to me, that just being able to have those dynamics is so key. So you should be able to play all the different levels of dynamics with the same sound if that's what you're feeling, and it should work like that.
One of the things I'm particularly loving is Klon 2 rock, right? Think of the players you know down the years who've used that kind of combination. Every single one of those players sounds like themselves.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's no tube screamer sound. There's no DS1 sound. There's no, it sounds like this. It sounds like you. And I love that, you know. Same thing. Could be John Mayer, right? How different is that sound? Jeff Beck, to a similar degree. I mean, he wasn't a 2 rock player, but anyway. Completely different sound again. I love that. I love that.
You know, players bring some of their sound naturally. I remember being with Dickie Betts, I would hear Dickie play a Strat plugged into a Twin, and it still sounded like Dickie Betts.
And they heard him 3 towns over as well.
Absolutely. He was one of the loudest guitar players I ever had the pleasure of standing next to. Fantastic. And his tone was always amazing. But I've heard Dickie play through a little practice amp, and it's like, yeah, that sounds like Dickie Betts playing, you know. But you're right. When you have a good rig, different people plug into it and sound completely different, you know. And like the way I turn the knobs is probably really weird for some people, you know. Oh, why do you know, like, but and again, it's partially because I don't always have the guitar all the way up. Some people like to have the guitar all the way up to get their sound, but to me, I only use that as far as the treble pickup being all the way up, I only use it if the band is really loud.
Right.
Otherwise, my sound on the treble pickup is somewhere between 6 and 9, I would say.
And how do you go about balancing? Because I see you do switch between them a lot.
A lot of it is making sure the pickups, the choice of pickups is balanced good. Some guitars you pick them up and they don't cooperate.
Yeah.
But this guitar balances really well. And on my signature guitar, we went through a lot of trouble to make sure. We wound up using Burst Bucker 1 and Burst Bucker 2, but they're really well balanced for me. Somebody else may not like it. But it's really important because a lot of times I'll flip the switch in the middle of a phrase.
Right.
And if it's not balanced, it sounds really bad.
Yeah.
But like as an example, let's just do like the 2 Rock Klon thing that we've been doing.
Any delay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
why not? So if you go. Also, no, that's with this back down a little bit. So I also do this thing sometimes where I'm switching in the middle of a note. And they have to be balanced for that as well, you know.
It's almost partway towards a wah-wah at that point. You use a wah-wah. We don't have a wah today, but yeah, partway towards that. Bloody hell, man, this sounds so good today.
That sounds great.
So, what direction would a slapback leave you in? As in, difference, you use a tape for a long delay. When you go to a slapback, where are you looking to go with that sort of a sound?
It's usually treble pickup, brighter sound, twangier. And just like if the tempo of the song cries out for that kind of thing, you know. Let's try the slapping. It's a cool
because it's quite prominent in the tone. You have it that prominent?
Yeah, I think sometimes a little bit of slap that you can't detect so well is nice. Yeah. But usually, if you want to hear the slapback, you want to hear it nice and loud. Yeah. You know, and I use it probably 10% compared to the long delay. Yeah. So when I use it, I want it to be a pretty prominent sound.
Awesome.
Okay, 2 more slightly unusual effects to talk about then. Reverse delay, maybe we'll get into it.
That's my new passion.
Yeah, so we, again...
I've been overusing that recently.
I think it was from the Premier Guitar Gear Rig Rundown. What I love is that on your delay pedal, it's one of the Digitech Hardwire ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
The word reverse is reversed.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
So this is presumably is for an improv kind of moment where you feel like it?
Yeah. Psychedelic, you know, if the band's getting really psychedelic, I use it on this new solo record that I just finished. I use it in a couple of spots, and it's just it's such a unique sound. And I'm guessing you guys probably know more than me, but Hendrix kind of started a lot of that, right? Like the flipping the tape over thing. I'm sure people had done it before.
Yeah, that tape thing, yeah.
But the backwards thing in general, I think he kind of perfected. You know?
Have a listen to something like Castles Made of Sand. It's throughout that, right?
Yeah, and it's fantastic. But who can have the opportunity to flip the tape over these days?
Yeah,
you know,
just to make the point, which Warren's just said, that's obviously a post-production thing. It's a studio thing. Jimmy wasn't using a reverse delay pedal, and
I've done that in the studio, and you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, sure.
And so, you know, like I did it where I would play 3 different solos, flip the tape over, and then see which ones translate and use a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one. Yeah. But now that you can do it live with the effect, it's just another tool, and I really enjoy it because you can approach it 2 different ways. You can try to figure out what to play that works, or you can just close your eyes and play and hope that it works. And if you get lost in the zone, it usually will. But let's try it. I remember the one we were experimenting with being pretty close, and I'm still tweaking mine too. So
yeah, but bear in mind, we've just chosen these pedals because they're what we have available, right? They're not necessarily what Warren would use on his own board, but.
See, you don't know what you're gonna get. You know,
it might sound odd out of context, but you imagine like the band
put that,
absolutely hammering and everything's massive and
it's meant to be part of an overall picture.
Yeah, sure.
Where what's going on around it is one thing, and then this is kind of juxtaposed on top of it, which is really fun and challenging. And I'm still tweaking mine all the time, and this one's a little bit different, but I just love the fact that it inspires you to play something you would never play.
Yeah, it demands that you play something.
And if you play slow, you get this kind of sweeping thing, but then if you play a bunch of fast stuff and then back off, and you hear it kind of looping itself, and it's pretty bizarre.
And finally, then the auto wah envelope filter. Was this part of being in the Dead, or?
Somewhat. I started playing with Phil Lesh in the late 90s. And then I toured with the Dead in 2003 and 2009. I probably playing with Phil, I started using an envelope filter more. And Gov't Mule maybe a little bit. But now it's part of my arsenal, obviously. And the one that I've been using is a discombobulator.
Yeah, we tried to get one. Couldn't.
But I also have the old Mutron, which I kind of like more. Oh, you have one? Yeah, those are awesome.
They're amazing.
And maybe I'll bring my Mutron out and take it on the road. I did when I did the Jerry Garcia Symphonic Experience thing, where I was playing Garcia's music with a symphony. I took the Mutron out, and it really was great.
Yeah.
But I also like the Zappa auto wah sound, you know. So a lot of times if I'm thinking of a discombobulator type tone, I'm thinking more Frank Zappa, you know. Which I love. You know, I think we talked about last night, maybe the best show I ever saw was Frank Zappa.
Man. Who was playing guitar for him at the time?
It was right before Steve Vai joined.
Okay.
So who was in that band? Was that Ray White? It was Terry Bozzio.
Yeah.
And that whole, it was the band the Live in New York band, but Steve Vai had not joined yet.
Right.
I was a senior in high school, and it was just like mind-boggling.
Let's see if you like this one then. So
yeah,
this
we actually haven't messed with this.
This is the analog man. You like it up, right? You like the filter to go up,
yeah,
rather than down.
Yes,
yeah.
Normally.
I think this is the up setting.
That's cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's a cool. I've never actually used that one. I like it.
Yeah,
that's Mike, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. You're basically neighbours, I believe, to
Analog Man.
to Analog Man.
Glad to help.
Yeah, no, they're really cool.
Yeah,
you know, it's just another way of making yourself play different.
Yeah,
because you have to
takes
play
you in a different
to the unit.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes me think about Sly and the Family Stone too, which that particular effect kind of has a Sly and the Family Stone vibe about it. You know,
if you think about the intro to Family Affair, it's not just on the guitar, it's on all kinds of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think in that, yeah,
they definitely took that to a whole nother level.
Do you have a different sound for playing slide?
Do I change the sound?
Yeah. Or is it you make it all work together?
I usually just make it work with what I have. I might change the setting on the guitar a little bit. Yeah. It just depends on what I'm hearing at the moment. You know,
it's a very clever way of me getting Warren to play some slide for us. Just your slide playing and how you play in standard tuning
and many other tunings.
And many other tunings. But I love your phrasing with slide and standard tuning is mind-blowing.
Well, you know, I first started playing in standard tuning when I was a kid because I didn't know about open tunings. And then I heard, oh no, people are tuning the guitar to E or G or something. So I experimented with that. But then I went back to standard because I thought it kind of gave me more options to not be stuck in the box of playing to the tuning.
Yeah, right.
Having said that, I love playing in open tunings, but it's more limited for me because I have to think in that tuning.
Yeah.
Where in standard, I just think, okay, what can I play that I can actually pull off, but I don't have to transpose it.
You're not learning guitar twice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But but I love I love Lowell George, Ry Cooder, Duane Allman, obviously, Elmore James, Muddy Waters, Bonnie Raitt is fantastic, and most of those people play in open tuning.
Yeah.
There are not many people that play in standard tuning, so I felt like in that way it kind of helped me find my own voice as well. And to be truthful, I didn't want to switch guitars. I wanted to be able to just pick up a slide and play if I felt like it.
Yeah.
You know,
that's awesome.
And that was probably the main thing. And then from what I've been told, Duane Allman only played in standard tuning on Dreams and Mountain Jam. And in both situations, it's because he saw the slide sitting there and picked it up and started playing it. It wasn't pre-planned.
Wow.
So apparently he was able to do that as well because those are both great solos. But to my knowledge, that's the only two times that he played in standard tuning. And Butch Trucks, the original drummer in the Allman Brothers, told me that when they were recording Dreams, they did a few takes and Duane was just playing regular guitar. And in the take that they kept, he was playing regular guitar and he looked over and saw his slide sitting there and picked it up and played it like for the first time. And that's the take that they wound up with. So the famous solo kind of happened as a progression of thought, so to speak, you know. Let's see what it sounds like slide through that envelope filter. I'm not sure I've actually done that. It's weird. So where are we now? We're to Rock Klon.
To Rock Klon, and that's it.
So if I back off the gain on, let's try middle position with both volumes down and just see. It's a little warm. So this is nice and clean. I would normally probably go to the treble pickup for this. Let's see, a little delay maybe. Do we have that would be fun to experiment
with a roto?
Sure, I don't do that much, but it's kind of. You want to hear more game?
Oh, I don't know. It's just saying that's an option.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I was just thinking the pedal pull.
Oh yeah. Cool. Give that a go.
Oh, you're on slow speed now.
Yeah.
So this is a good example. If I was going to play slide, I don't do much slide through the Leslie.
Yeah.
If I was going to play slide through the Leslie, especially slow speed, then I would probably do with no vibrato, so you hear the Leslie.
Oh, yes, of course.
So let's see what happened to me here. Otherwise, the vibrato and the Leslie are fighting each other, which is cool sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, so that's the mother of invention, right? It makes you play differently. Yeah. So my gut reaction was to not use vibrato when the slow Leslie was on.
Just playing the sound.
So it's so interesting, right? And I noticed this with the really high level players. You play so in tune. Like your intonation is just bang on. But things like that, where, okay, I'm not going to use vibrato when it messes with the modulation of the, like, going to that level where you're taking into account every single detail of the sound of the signal chain, so that you know what you want, and you know when it's working and when it's not working.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it's working by accident.
Sure.
And you go with that.
Yeah.
You know, if you might try something and it wasn't what you intended to do, but it sounds cool, so you stay with it. So again, having your comfort zone is great, but also throwing yourself curveballs is great too, because it makes you play different, which equals inspiration, you know.
I know that you've got to go in a minute. I just selfishly, you go.
You may be about to ask the same question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I would just love you to show a really simple slide lick in standard tuning that we can all steal.
Oh, okay.
It just sounds so good.
Well, we'll start with, let's see. So we'll start with emulating open tuning in standard.
Okay.
Okay, so the one way that you can emulate open G, because the 3-string chord B, G, D is the same as open G. So you can pivot on that a lot.
Right.
So as an example, if I play
It's just so
now,
cool.
if you played that in open G, it would all be on the same fret.
Yeah.
So
okay.
because this would be a D.
Yep.
But since that's an E, I play the first note down here. But it's just a simple little open tuning lick, right? Yep. If you played that on in standard tuning, you'd have to go and that's the wrong notes. But so you're at that point you're only transposing one string.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference. So all of that is the same thing in open G as standard tuning.
Right.
So that's that's a good place to start.
Really beautiful. I must mention your slide as well.
Oh.
That's a funky looking slide.
Was just gifted to me by this girl who's a guitar player and a fan from Ukraine, and she knew that we paint the inside of our slides. So they're glass slides, and we just paint the inside. And it's not just for the appearance; it also sticks to your finger better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she painted this one with nail polish and just gave it to me a couple of nights ago, and I happened to have it in my pocket.
So the paint is on the inside.
Paint's on the inside, which keeps it from falling off. I used to use a Coarse Eden bottle, which is what Dwayne Allman used, and I have one of his Coarse Eden bottles that was gifted to me, and it's a great sound, but it's closed on the top.
Yeah.
And so I find that the moisture gets trapped in there, and it messes with your callus.
Right.
So I'm back to using the open ones like this.
And always glass.
These days, I used to use a brass one in the old days, but I don't prefer it. I like the glass.
Yeah.
And the question I was going to ask is, that's Dan's Les Paul. How is that action compared to yours?
This is pretty similar. It might be a little higher at the moment than where my guitar is, because in the band that I'm playing with right now, I don't play nearly as much slide as I do in some other situations. I keep my action what I call too high for lead, not high enough for slide, because I want to be able to just pick up a slide on the same guitar and play it. So I don't mind fighting the guitar a little bit more, but I don't want to pick up a slide and have it bottoming out. So I got to make sure that it's high enough for that,
And just for context, that action is kind of where Dan has his Les Paul to play normally. So it's not.
Yeah, it's good.
A lot of people assume you've got to jack it right up for slide, but it's not.
No, you just have to, you have to get used to. I know some people play with really low action, and that's much harder, obviously. The biggest thing for slide, I think, the biggest hurdle to get past is the extraneous noise.
Yeah.
And so there's a right hand technique where you're muting with your right hand. You see it, I have the pick here, but I have the pick like that all the time. So if I'm playing with my right hand, I'm using my thumb to mute the bottom strings, and I'm using whatever fingers I'm not attacking the strings with, I'm using those fingers to mute the other strings to get the noise down.
Yeah.
So if I go, my thumb is muting those, and my other fingers are muting. So the only string that's not muted is the one I'm playing.
Wow.
And it makes a huge difference,
And you're using your middle finger there for support?
Yeah. And also there are times, not to change the subject, but there are times when I don't want the mute because I want that raspy sound.
Yeah.
So if I go, I'm lifting up the fingers, and it's brighter and raspier, you know. But if I want the brighter sound, I just lift the mute up. But it's there. The muting process is really the key to like being able to take your slide playing to the next level. Yeah. I think, and it's mostly the right hand. Some on the left hand. Right. You know, when you because it's the same here. If you're muting behind the slide, you're getting rid of noise. Yeah, yeah. If you're lifting it up, you're adding that delta kind of sound, which is beautiful. Yeah.
How much has your singing informed your slide playing? Your phrasing and your vibrato and
vice versa. Yeah. You know, I think a lot. I want, both with my slide playing and with my normal guitar playing, I want the vibratos to be similar. Yeah. And I want the tone to be similar. Yeah. You know, when I hear Bonnie Raitt sing and play, it sounds like the same person singing and playing. Yeah. B.B. King, the same way. Mm-hmm. And so I've always wanted to find a guitar sound that matched my voice, you know, because it would seem weird to me to have, I think that's probably one of the reasons I always played Gibson guitars, because they sound more like my voice. Wow. But I just always gravitated toward that sound, you know.
This has been amazing, and honestly, we could do this for hours. It's so much fun. I know you've got a plane to catch, unless you've already missed it, and we can just hang out here for the rest of the day.
Don't say that, but
no. We're not missing any planes today.
But mate, honestly, thank you so much. This has been an absolute trip. I've learned so much in this. It's been awesome.
My pleasure.
Total education. And Jim, thanks for facilitating.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Walsh. We really appreciate it. Okay, Warren, we wish you the best for the new record.
Thank you.
Please let us know when it happens. We know there are other things happening with guitars and such.
Yeah, I'm working on some a signature model Les Paul with P90s, and working on a signature model Firebird with 3 P90s, and also some amps. I've been talking to Gibson for the past few years about how much I love Gibson amps. Mm. And I used to record a lot with the Skylark, which is with the 6 or 8 inch Jensen and one knob. I love that. So there's a new amp that's going to be coming out that's based on the Skylark, but it'll have a little more control.
Okay. 4x12.
And no,
100 watt.
But reverb.
Oh, lovely.
And then also an amp that's based on the Falcon, which sounds really great. So yeah, I think a couple of amps, couple of guitars in the near future. I don't know exactly when yet, but soon.
Yeah. You'll know. Gibson's marketing will make sure you know.
Yeah, indeed.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We might
really
ask you
enjoyed
to play us out, if that's all right.
Sure.
Any sound you like?
Let's see. Pick a sound, any sound.
Stick both amps on down.
Both amps on. I think so. And the tape delay.